It's like a precursor to the main event. The main event isn't here yet.
This isn't the main event.
We are waiting for it to happen.
All the characters watch from the sidelines.
We started a bowling alley where all the pins had magnets inside, so when you get a strike, the person turns to their friends and woos. But their friends all look down the alley and see the pins wobbling back in place and say, "You just grazed them. You're just overconfident. Maybe you should calm down."
It's a bit grey in here.
A lintel whirs back into existence, a long spool of tape feeding it with familiar morning clicks. The heavy weight of dust lies over what appears to be a dry ocean of spools and banks of wire held together by tie, wraps. All the pieces of equipment in the room, of which there are many, are wrapped in plastic to keep away the water. Even so, they still manage to be full of condensation. A pile of tape in black bags starts slowly pulsating to and fro, lulling and lolling back and forth. Then it starts to gain a bit of momentum. You can see the sheen of the black bags as water trickles down around the room.
The bags are moving like a pendulum now, lolling with a sleepy conviction over and over, pushing the oscillation further, until with one great effort a mass of wire and bag lumbers up, falls away to reveal a man. He's wearing a dishevelled, too small, grubby brown suit, nearly grey with a build-up of computer fan dust and black grease which just appears like a layer of leather forming a shiny crust on the edges of things. The room itself seems to act like a giant computer fan, collecting piles of fine grey dust. Dust glistening with white light like that of the sun and in a place of white rocks and yellow plants, yet the darkness of an algae-laden pond. The figure is moving slowly towards the point where all the plastic-wrapped technology converges.
They excavate a chair, then sit down behind a lintel,
which leads deep through angular rectangled walls towards a panel. You could call it a screen, but it isn't really. More like a hole. They turn a knob through the shroud of yellowing plastic. The controls sit behind. A low hum buzzes into the room as they put on a large set of headphones and long telescopic glasses. They hook their fingers into rings coming from below the panel, connected to extending rods penetrating the dark panel, allowing for the interaction necessary to... The lintel stops, clicks, and engages a new reel with a crunch. They are registered onto the tape, and the body slumps down as they leave it behind.
I wish distance was longer. The gradient between things, the infinite division of a point into smaller and smaller quantifications of points. Spread them out. Worlds lay between each point.
No matter whether it is the space between one side of the grain of sand and the other, or rolling fields from a train track to the horizon. You can cut and cut and cut again, but you can't do that while you're moving.
You tread and split the differences between things. Far is far and close is very close. There is little between. The world flattens.
Eyes, lenses, like measuring points can scan every distance and pinpoint it back, tracking the entirety of the space and opening up. No close, no far. Scale disappeared when the spaces were connected by lintels.
We lived a while without doorways before we could move again thanks to the lintels. No longer was the meter or foot a point of scale to measure distance. Now, it was all left equal, absolved from the tyranny of scale.
Telescopic
glances,
travelling through analysis, movement of the
scanning, to transport the mind knowing where everything is through the complete scan gradient of every point within.
translated not into points of data, but a systematically exponential data gathering system where space is taken to such an extent that the only limit to our ability to perceive what the device has gathered is our ability to quantify, to fix points, find a reference, a number, a colour, a difference. Places beyond our quantifiable range just weren't consciously explainable.
This doesn't mean that people didn't go there, though, with scale abolished and individual body relations and senses lost. New satisfaction had to be found from new limits. That being, the limit of the scanned space's maximum size and the smallest perceivable thing at the other end.
They would be trapped in each scanned space if it was not for the lintels, which acted as both the recording devices of the space and the passageways to another space. Every space had to be connected, as the lintels always came in pairs of A and B. This was not designed into them, but simply a byproduct of the device.
Or so they say. I don't know anyone that knows that much in depth about the lintels. Unfortunately, it's impossible to get to the spaces between. There are no in-between spaces anymore. Corridors, roundabouts, picnic areas, roads, the cracks between mortar, leading between brickwork to the space next door. The only way to travel now is through the lintels. Lintels whisk you away, leave behind old scale and substance, become a point of any size, able to be anything or anymore.
It suddenly became very difficult to know where anyone was, as to travel through the lintel you must leave whatever body you inhabit in front of the lintel.
And become a singular point in the scanned space.
Who or where you were in each space was hard to know. Someone could be a chair, a table, a speck of dust, a cliff face, the eye of a bumblebee. My commute was long. I had to get through several lintels in the forms available to me, the problem being that through each lintel the rules change.
On one end you can do it like this, on another like that.
I'd crawl to my lintel through the debris and go to the first space.
Now the first one was always annoying, as it was a room with these 3 bickering musicians with soft instruments.
A guy called Johnny would pace around outside, and as soon as the band got 30 seconds into something, he'd storm in and start bawling at them. Then the instruments would flop and they'd have to knead them back into shape. I'd see this on repeat for about an hour, as although the room was very small and my lintel was directly opposite the one I needed, there was an issue of scale. I was a bit larger than the size of a dust particle and would indeed have to wade, well, not wade, no legs, but drift across the dust from my lintel to the other side of the room, which would take me about an hour. I tried hard to keep a good grip on scale, so you know, maybe that's why. Because like I was telling you, others just flit around like they aren't there. I'm real head to the dust. Honest, work hard, I guess. So by this time the musicians had re-kneaded their instruments twice and were just getting going on a third knead after Johnny had come in and told them the tune was wrong and it was a stupid tempo.
One was trying to stretch a doughy, viscous substance across wire rings suspended around his waist via shoulder straps.
The amorphous substance was proving to be tedious to tuck around all the edges of each ring without it popping out or splitting before it was taut enough. Another was pulling up the neck bit by bit of a huge instrument which resembled your most revered primary school dinner lady with her big neck stretched way beyond the limit it should have.
I was edging across a single stitch on the carpet as dust cascaded past me looking like lace meteorites. Occasionally, I passed through one of these pieces of dust, travelling through tunnels and webs or along the surface ridges of a skin flake.
Maybe I'm smaller than I said I was. Sorry, I try not to exaggerate.
Another musician was etching the grooves into the bellows of an instrument and attempting to tease out the shape of keys from a slack sludge of what was keys before wilting.
Then a long bulbous instrument was being stretched out, but it kept flopping at the ends again and again and again.
And I knew that eventually it would be propped up on another musician's shoulders before being stretched into firmness. But yet again, this hadn't occurred to the musician yet.
I am about 3 stitches further by now. Once I tried to count them, but lost track around 7,840, which is maybe 2/3 of the way across.
They are still kneading, it takes them a very long time, and they all make passive-aggressive remarks to each other.
For some reason I still can't work out. They never take a break, and never even talk about giving up. Is it worthwhile for the few seconds they manage to get in before a good bowling brings them back down again?
Maybe they record it all and will one day piece together each few seconds they get to play into one of the most beautiful things we've ever heard.
But maybe not, from the screeching I usually hear. What I do know, though, I can only see the trees, and a few of them at that. The forest may be great. I assume all the time I'm not in the room, the same thing is happening, as it happens the entire time I'm in the room, every time. You don't know, though. They could be doing it simply to amuse or antagonize me. Although I am sure they have absolutely no knowledge of my passing through the place. I never make a peep or move a thing. Even if they move into me, I can travel through their pores and blood and bone without disturbing a sensation or tickling a nerve. Imagine this is the beginning of a stitch on the carpet. Now, okay, I haven't stopped travelling over it until I tell you I have. I'm going. They are kneading, still inching forward like a millimetre post. A terrible system metric, an imperial like oil and water you pay by the inch, it travels by the millimetre. Still going. No change in the kneaders. Everything about this room is slow. There are no furnishings. Everything is a dark, bland colour. There is no stimulus whatsoever. Still haven't got over it yet. Okay, and nearly. I hope you're hearing at the same pace as me. And here we are. Now, 1 stitch.
Let's go to the next room. So in this room, the one guy cycles to power the furnace. He jumps off the cycle, takes a pile of freshly baked grey balls and throws them at the wall rapidly. Then he resumes peddling. In the meantime, the other, with great swooping motions, takes a gloop from the floor and wall, mixes it in a tub, forms it into balls and then bakes these balls before placing them ready to be thrown again.
I keep a body in the cupboard outside the room.
Every time I have to go into the room and ask for the key, as the openings in a locked room next door. Only the burly one has the key. He always forgets me, or at least to entertain himself forgets me.
He eyes me up like meat and gets in too close and grabby. I have to ask the exact same questions, the same words in the same order, or he won't answer or even notice. So I knock twice, then go in. They carry on working. I shout, "Hello!" twice.
Pause, then ask, "Do you have a lintel round here?" To which he comes up to me, to my face, dripping sweat over me, swings an arm round my shoulder, and then begins to mutter quiet incoherences into my ear. After much insisting and swinging away from his inconsistent mouth noises, I manage to make him open the lintel. All the while, the other one cycles. The next one is nice, like the lintels just wanted to treat me.
It's a tree-lined autumnal lane. I can take in the permanent orange glow and the molecules of leaf fluttering through the air, which I imagine, if I had a nose, would fill me up with a deep scent of wet bracken and crisp red leaf. There is never a nose around, not an animal, nor even an insect. So I can't crunch the leaves or feel the dewdrops, and it's all very melancholic and overly sentimental.
Then I arrive at the office. I never even mentioned what I do. Welly well,
We disassemble those who have been voted out while away from their original bodies. It's a hazy, difficult business. We track them down to their original lintel.
Cease the limp body, then bring it to the office for disassembly.
Today it's the guy who was posing as a washing machine in a laundry room. After the job, all that's left of them once we're done is a pile of stills from a film that hasn't been made.